So, we have only one question to understand. How do you think, why did Musk decide to get involved with politics? All that he's doing about Hunter Biden only yesterday or so on, and others.
He is one of those, one of the members of that very small group known as billionaires. When they don't live in the United States, when they live elsewhere, they call them oligarchs or whatever. But he's actually wealthier than most of those that they call oligarchs. I don't know what the actual club membership is like. In other words, there's a small group of people that run most of the Western world. I don't know if I suddenly got lucky and made a few $1 billion, if they would call me on the phone and say, hey, Don, come join our circle and help us rule the world. I think it works differently than that. So I don't know what his relationship is to the actual centers of power, but he has the means of expressing power with all of that wealth. And certainly the purchase of one of the town squares, a major one, would enhance it, give him his own independent base for power. There was a real oddity, to be gentle, having a president of the United States. In fact, he was still a sitting president of the United States, to be banished from speaking in a public forum. And Trump had been banished from expressing himself without heavy, mediation for even when he was a candidate and his entire presidency, which was also, if it's not unusual, what was unusual is it was the first time that it was obvious that this is what was happening. I mean, you have to say Biden is being mediated also, or he would just sit on television and drool in front of us or whatever he does. But it was very unusual to have someone actually be, overtly banned. And this, this odd condition is an opportunity for someone to act like a white knight and say, look, this thing is really heavily censored, way out of control. I want to come in and, white knight it. I'll bring balance back to the public square or whatever. That's the apparent. Now, my personal experience is, however, only a week into his ownership, I got suspended from Twitter. And this was during a suspension on Facebook. I was suspended because somehow I ended up on Zelensky's distribution list. I believe that the U.S. intel was, providing him access to everyone. And I assume that happens with the collaboration of Musk, who supports the war effort there with his wireless networks and such. But Zelensky tweeted something about seeing President Putin and the other leaders of the Russian government in the dock for war crimes, as they put it. And I reminded him of the fate of actual similar U.S. puppets over time, such as Manuel Noriega, who's in prison, and Saddam Hussein, who had an even tougher ending to his show. And that, they might find it cheaper to do one of these with him than a retirement package to Miami. And I told him also, I reminded him of the history of Nuremberg and that, this was a possible ending also for war crimes for him. And as I put it, the decline in Eva Braun, or the little Eva Braun, his wife. And so, I'm sorry, this I thought was either satire or a recital of history or both.
And what did Twitter say to you? So what was their excuse?
I either threatened him with violence or wished violence upon him. And it was neither of those. Now, this is the part that I think is germane. This is a public square. Twitter comes to my home via the internet, which I pay for. I subsidize the streets that the wires are carried over, the infrastructure that has heavy public investment in it for the air broadcast of the wireless signal. The development of all of those tools came through U.S. military, much of it, DARPANET and such. So there's a heavy public investment in this thing, and now the management of it is left supposedly to private interests who are able to do things because they're not the government that the government is not allowed to do under the U.S. Constitution, such as surveillance, such as interfering with free speech, etc. And what happens in essence is that this government that is owned by private interests then subcontracts out to the same private interests the operation and management of these things on behalf of the government that would be illegal for the government to do. So in other words, this publicly funded public square is managed by the people who manage everything else in a way to prevent us from discussing the fact that our public resources are being managed. And then they ban us, and they can do this to someone even who is a sitting president of the United States. It gives you a real peek behind the relation of power in the United States.
And when exactly did this story of yours happen? So it was these days?
Yeah, today, as a matter of fact, Friday, the 25th of November, is the last day of my suspension. It was a 7-day suspension.
In Twitter?
So, 18th, yes, Twitter. I have still one more week to go with my suspension on Facebook, which was a 30-day suspension. That's the third one I've had this year. Coincidentally or not coincidentally, my Facebook suspensions, although there were things each time, that they pointed to that didn't really fit the violation cited, and there's no appeal process. The timing were events such as the 24th of February. That was one of the times that I was suspended, so I was not able to post on Facebook while the war was, accelerating in Ukraine. And then again, in April, when the peace talks broke down, I was not allowed to comment again in the public square on what was happening there. And then over the course of the summer, one of the alleged, war crimes that turned out to be faked, that were being, attributed to the Russian military, I wasn't allowed to comment then also. So in each case, they said, you violated this or that. The very first violation, by the way, I was explaining to a friend not on the public square, but in Messenger, the similarity between the conditions of placement of NATO, including the attempted coups in Belarus and Kazakhstan last year, and then the thrust of the attack in Ukraine, comparing it to Barbarossa, the invasion of the Soviet Union by Hitler's forces, showing a map that this is, pretty much where they're starting from where Hitler finished, pretty much. And so it's obvious that there's going to be a war against Russia. And I made reference to the fact that the plan was to take Russia and break it up, just like Hitler had described in Mein Kampf in 1922 when he wrote it in his jail cell. And so I sent my friend a copy of Mein Kampf relevant pages over Messenger. Within 10 seconds of my sending it, my screen went red, and I got a notice that I violated something, and boom, and I was off for a month.
Wow.
It was a little scary, yeah. So I guess they're listening to everything. They meant that when they said total information awareness, they meant total.
Yeah, it's strange because I didn't know they could somehow.
Yep, I don't know
read
how.
your on
I had an experience last
messenger.
year or 2 years ago, uploading to YouTube. I went with a friend to a wedding of another friend, and the wedding was outside. And I do video, television work. So I brought 2 cameras to videotape the wedding reception. And we were outside. So they were Jewish. They had a chuppah for the ceremony. And I put one camera fixed on the chuppah and just let it run. So people walked by, kids were playing, all of this. And then the ceremony, and I didn't have to do anything. It was fixed. My friend took the other camera and went to the party and was interviewing people, watching them dance and such. Where I was situated, the music was, a couple hundred feet the other direction behind the camera. You could just hear very slightly from the party. So I decided a year and a half ago, I'm going to take the thousands of videotapes that I have and once a day upload 2 hours of it to YouTube. So all this work that I did is preserved somewhere. I don't care what it is. I uploaded that tape. And within 6-7 minutes of uploading a 2-hour videotape, I got 53 copyright hits. The software on their end had interpreted everything I uploaded, looked up copyright, identified the copyright holder, notified them that there was a copyright tag there, notified me that they had done that, and that if I monetized it, that money would be first paid to the copyright holder
Yeah, yeah,
automatically.
I know about it. And Instagram do the same thing. If you upload the video with music, for example, from the radio, they banned this post and say, no, you can't use this music without the permission.
So the content of every conversation that anyone has through any of this stuff, and even in their own houses, I mean, for all we know now, that you're not a paranoid psychotic to say the refrigerator is listening to me,
Yeah.
because everything is a smart appliance and who knows what they're doing. But, you know, they used to use the term totalitarian to describe the socialist countries, to describe the Soviet Union and the Eastern Bloc. But no one has had total surveillance capability like they have implemented here and that they're using. It's a frightening thought, really.
And regarding Musk, yeah, we think that maybe he's doing all the stuff for make some additional money, but why? So he couldn't run for president because he's an immigrant. So politics, no. So why is he doing all this?
Well, first of all, you know, if you want to run the presidency, all you do is hire a president. Look at the Ukraine. You know, we had Ronald Reagan also. I mean, and his only fault was he wasn't as good an actor as, say, Barack Obama. First of all, there's the intrinsic power of having control, whether it's with a soft hand or a hard hand, over the public square. But even deeper than that, you know, the kind of processing that we're talking about, you know, is not only over the content of speech, it's also in building a database of information about everyone. Just in terms of raw power, that is obviously, you know, a useful tool. To know what people are going to do, think, be able to predict their behavior. Certainly in terms of enhancing his commercial position, in other words, of recovering his investment and having whatever he intends to do with it be self-financing and even reproduce wealth. You know, if I know whose favorite color is red, I know who to market red dresses to, and red nail polish and red cars or whatever. And so if you're selling something, you can borrow my database, you know, get out your checkbook and it's going to cost you this much or whatever. So there's the intrinsic commercial value of this data. But I think the real expression of it is just in terms of raw power, because you can manipulate the public narrative to suit your ends. And you can basically talk people into talking themselves into doing anything.
Mm-hmm. So it's all about the power. So
Yes.
the global power.
Yes. Well, I remember in 1984, there's a discussion between Winston Smith and O'Brien. O'Brien is the party official, the sort of the high up party official. And they're having a discussion about power, and they finally sum it up that the object of power is power.
And Musk received the government subsidy. And when he posted all this about Hunter Biden or so on, why is he not afraid that they could cut this subsidy?
Well, okay. I mean, I don't know the answer. All I can do is make deductions.
Yeah, of course,
obviously.
we do.
Available to us. I mean, there are two theories that I have that I think are equally plausible. One is that he is, in fact, an insurgent within the elite. And so he is picking up the available, you know, counter. In other words, these are the dissidents over here. They're the ones that are being suppressed by the other side that I'm going to do battle with. And so I'm going to round up these people as part of my forces. That's one way of doing it. The other is that he's a partner in a dance. The American intelligence and military strategy, if you look around in the colonies, around Latin America and what's left in Asia and in Africa, and here in the United States too, they've really internalized it over the last 30 or 40 years. The solution is to keep the population almost evenly divided. Look at Ukraine's electoral map from 1991 forward, or when the first election, 92, 93. You have like elections that are 51 to 49% with a shifting 3 or 4% in between, and a highly polarized bulk on either end of that barbell. It's divide and conquer with scientific precision, basically. And so he may be part of that dance. It's like, okay, well, they have suppressed these guys. The guys with the blue shirts have suppressed the guys with the red shirts. And so I'm going to take up the red banner with them. It's so ridiculous to be using these colors. The red banner used to mean something entirely different when I was a kid. But they're going to pick up the red banner. Now we're going to go do battle. And we will win 51 to 49, and we will still be highly polarized. I hate you because you're in favor of abortion. I hate you because you're opposed to abortion rights. I hate all these things that have nothing to do with that guy's got all the power. We're all in the same boat, but we're at each other's throats. He might be part of that game with this. And this is a powerful incentive to do it. It seems like the narrative collapses soon, and now he's reinvigorating it, basically.
I see.
I don't know which thing it is. It's one of those two, I think.
I see. That's interesting. Thank you so much.